If we were able to redistribute all income so that everyone earned exactly the same, there will be no income whatsoever. I look at Britain and I start crying. There's nothing wrong with rich people. There is something very wrong with poor people. They're poor.
Arthur Laffer is the world's most famous economist. The Laffer Curve is named after him.
I know Art's been to the Oval Office, unlike most people, many times.
You have almost worked with pretty much like every president.
I have. I was the first chief economist in the White House at 29.
And he has some strong opinions.
Someone says, my dad worked from paycheck to paycheck. Oh my God, what a Schlebovich your father must have been. Ugh. My father was really cool. I mean, they were poor, they lived dirt poor, they were scratching dirt. No. I got my job because of privilege. It's so much nicer getting that job with privilege than actually having to earn it. I'm so guilty. I'm not guilty at all. I didn't do anything wrong. If you were in the Oval Office today, the redecoration he's done is phenomenal. It's really high class.
Let's talk about Trump, right?
Talk about Trump.
He's the modern, it's incredible.
He's the modern Ronald Reagan. Imagine if we were Britain, we would have Nancy Pelosi as our president.
He might be 85, but we got into some strong debates.
Come on, have a date. Let's you and I have a debate. Make it for 3 hours with this dumb son of a gun.
Yeah, but you also had the Great Depression in 29, right?
It's all there, young man. I'm richer than you are.
It seems like you would almost think that America is historically a high-tax country.
But it is.
Right, okay.
If the government took over the Sahara Desert, within 5 years, there'd be a shortage of sand. You know the ones I'm talking about.
Make sure you subscribe so we can continue to get bigger and bigger guests. What would you be studying today if you were going to university?
You know, what I really like to do is understand how to combine, simplify, and structure models. No, that's exactly what is the Laffer Curve.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a very simple pedagogic device that explains a very obvious relationship between tax rates and total revenues. I mean, you think about what's so brilliant about that. There's nothing. It's just the relationship there. Now, these types of relations and interactions and connections and models is where I think the human mind still has a way. It's like Roger Penrose. Did you see The Emperor's Clothes or whatever it was, the book? And, the whole sort of the decoherence in creating a new thought, a new way of looking. This is what I really think is cool about the world. Getting rid of all transactions costs. Let me imagine. You've got to love your National Health Service. But it's really, really bad. And I don't mean yours specifically. I mean, here you can be a doctor. You can be, what is it? MD, I don't know what the name of the thing is called, but you can look up symptoms. Yeah, I've got a dribbling nose, my eye itches, I've got something. That's what you've got. You don't need a doctor anymore. You don't need to spend all this money on getting diagnosis. And then you ask, what are the normal treatments? Here's what you do. Where does the medicine come in now? Well, now it should be in research labs and doing that type. And that's where all the great developments are. And we could probably reduce transactions costs in society maybe 50, 60%.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to school. What do you learn at school that isn't in your computer?
Well, exactly. So what
Well, this is what school, I'm not sure I have the right answer.
Yeah.
But it's the right question to ask. I mean, it's what you gigglingly said coming in. I mean, where are those jobs? Here's what I started doing. And it's exactly the right thing that you're doing. And where does the modern world go? And you don't want to have a human brain trained to be a markedly inferior computer.
Yeah.
Why would you spend all that time that way? What can we really do?
So what?
And it may not be jobs. See, talking with you coming in and all these entrepreneurs that do all these things, and billionaires now, and they look at their little kids. My snuggling, snot-nosed kid doesn't understand what it's like to have to work for a living. I need to train. No, it's a different world. What do you do if you're a billionaire and you have children? What does the royal family do? Do you think King Charles has to work to be a? No, he's got to work to be a king.
Yeah.
And you look at the royal family, you look at all these people with different asset endowments, and not only asset endowments, different skill endowments, and what would make for a better society?
You were talking there on the way. What's the difference between being rich and getting rich?
That's the question, isn't it? Yeah. Once you're rich, you don't need to learn how to work a buck and sell a newspaper and do the paper routes that you asked me about when I was first done. No, you don't. You need to know how to handle assets and use them in a way that creates a better world. And it may not be economic. I mean, most people think of rich people should be charity driven, but they should be wealth driven.
Yeah.
And how to handle wealth is very different than how to acquire wealth.
But isn't there too much of people, and maybe this is a British thing, but of protecting their wealth, right? Not trying to grow it.
Well, protecting their wealth is another thing, but enjoying art, creation, there's all sorts of parts of the world that are not abstemious little money grubbing earning.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they all are, but we're trying to move into this new society. Wouldn't it be, if all of these, do you remember a little Abner, Al Cap?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you do, the cartoonist. He created this thing called a shmoo. The shmoo provided all the food and all the necessities of life. You didn't need to work for it. Now, what do?
What would I do if I didn't have to? I'd probably exercise.
Be careful. What you want to do is think it through very, very slowly and carefully and train people on how to handle themselves in a world of plenty. And especially if it comes in a world of plenty without all sorts of negative externalities like polluted air and trash on the streets and things. Imagine if we could have a car that drove a person from here to there, the cost of driving only a person from here to there. For example, of each gallon, or what do you call liter of petrol, you say, say gallon of gas. But, I like a quarter of 1% is really the amount of energy needed to move you from here to there.
Yeah.
The rest of it's taking car, all that. Now imagine if we could have heating in a building where only the ambient environment around you was warm.
Well, it could all be electric soon as well, right? All the cars.
Not only electric, but they could be, you just fit in a little tiny tube.
Yeah.
And the thing do it. So you don't even have to drink all that metal to walk around and all that. Just looking at Tesla and the self-driving, that vehicle that sits there that drove you for, its downtime is what, 98% of its time is downtime? Yeah. Now, if we could use that for everyone else as well, so now we need 1/10 the number of cars that we have.
Yeah.
Because you and I could share, all of us could have this. You wouldn't have to have a driver. And you could have the heat on the thing in the little back. It's really wonderful.
That's going to be one of the interesting things that happens with potentially cities, right? Is if you get rid of all car parking, right?
There's no parking necessary anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Not only that, but you don't have to make many of them. Yeah. And they last for 100,000 years. They've got that battery.
Yeah.
There are no moving parts except the little wheels.
Yeah.
The maintenance of a battery-driven car is very small.
Yeah.
It really is. What do you have? It's, I don't know. A little bit heavy thing under the seat. And 0 to 60 is what, in 2 seconds?
Yeah.
So you could now transport someone from here to Canary Wharf in, 34 seconds? I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about electric cars, I'll just mention that this episode is supported by our long-term partners, Octopus Energy. Now, not only have they been shaking up the way that we power our homes with green electricity, but now they've got some brilliant options if you're thinking about switching to an electric car, and how you can power it with solar panels and even heat your home with a heat pump. which makes going electric a lot simpler and more affordable to do. If you're a listener of Jimmy's Jobs and you're considering an electric car, solar panel, or a heat pump, then just drop us a line at jimmy@octopus.energy and the team will look after you personally.
By the way, you have the map of Scotland all over your face, by the way, just for the record.
What's the map?
Oh, you look very Scottish.
Oh, yeah. Well, McLaughlin as well,
Like,
surname,
of course,
right?
my family. We're Scots-Irish as well.
Oh, is that where they...
German as well. Belfast, Northern Ireland, we all come from, and Scotland and Germany.
No, well, tell us about you and your background, right? And take us back to the sort of beginning. What did your parents do for work?
Well, my father was CEO and chairman of one of the largest companies in America for 25 years, so very privileged family. My mother was foreman of the grand jury, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. Twice she was head of the largest women's organization there. A very power couple. My grandfather was a brain surgeon at Western Reserve Medical and also at the University of Vienna. We were bilingual.
Wow.
My grandmother, his wife, was number 2 in the suffrage movement in Cleveland. My mom's father started 4 steel companies, was very financially successful. My grandmother, on my mother's side, was the grande dame of them. My mother was probably the lead socialite of Cleveland at the time. And if you go back generations, we've been very successful, the same prep school, the same Yale to do brothers as well. And so we've been very privileged for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's what I'm talking about. How do you raise people in this environment as opposed to a shopkeeper or something else? And very much the same background as Donald Trump.
We're definitely going to come on to him. But what did that kind of like instill in you from sort of an early age?
Well, an obligation to be able to pay a nice way, not, I'm so guilty. I'm not guilty at all. I didn't do anything wrong. I remember telling my father when I was young, and, Dad, I've been successful, but I look at a black family or a Jewish family or something like that. And, what do I say? I can't say I came out of the dirt poor and made it on my own. Also, the only one that's had a problem, my grandfather. And it's a different family type of structure that I come from.
Yeah.
And it is a very privileged family, but not one that you don't get back.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't work your little tush off. And I did. And very proudly so. My dad did too. My dad didn't get those jobs because he was...
Do you think there's a cultural difference between Britain and America in this sense? Because what is interesting about the data with British people now is that they want to have come from nothing, right? Like that's seen
I know.
as that,
what is that?
I don't know. But
why
I think
did they want to insult their parents?
But it's this thing about generational wealth is now something in the UK to kind of be almost, maybe not ashamed of, but certainly not to brag about.
Well, in Australia, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, in Australia, it's the tall wheat syndrome. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having successful parents and grandparents. In fact, I'm sort of proud of my grandparents and my parents and all that. I mean, someone says, my dad worked from paycheck to paycheck. Oh my God, what a Schlebovich. Your father must have been. My father was really cool. I mean,
it is interesting.
But you know what I'm saying?
Completely, right?
And why should you be ashamed of your father and mother and of your grandparents? I mean, they were poor. They lived dirt poor. They were scratching dirt. No.
It's almost just wanting to prove it all against the odds, though. Like, it is a fascinating shift that's happened. And it's kind of happened over your lifetime, I think.
Oh, right? What's happened, I don't know. But I can remember my daughter saying, Dad, I want to make it on my own, not because of you. Well, then give me back my half of the double helix. Come on, give it back to me. I mean, you genetically, your parents. Yeah. Genetically, you're your grandparents. What the hell's wrong with it? Do you want to give back your double helix? No. You're, 23andMe? Come on, plug it in. There you all are. You want to learn to live with who you are and do the best you can with the hand that you're dealt.
Yeah.
And do it the best you can, not by climbing on other people's backs and kicking them and tush.
Yeah.
None of that. You want to do it as a warm, constructive member of a society. I mean, I'm very proud of what I've accomplished. No, I've started with a lot,
Yeah.
But I've used that a lot, I think, very well.
Yeah.
I've got 6 kids. I've got 14 grandkids. I've already have 4 great-grandkids, and they're all doing pretty well. I mean, the thing is to be able to play the hand, to get the hand and play the hand you've been dealt.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
That is 6 kids.
There's nothing wrong with being successful.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with your parents being successful or your grandparents being successful. But what you want to do is play that hand well.
Yeah. Well, so you have almost worked with pretty much like every president in your kind of working life.
And when I was a child, MacArthur carried me on his shoulders when he came and visited Cleveland. I mean, Bob Taft used to stay at our house. I've never been in awe of those people. I love them. In fact, I feel very good with them.
Yeah. 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 But your first official job was at 29 for a president. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I was 29 in the White House, yes.
Yeah.
George Shultz's right-hand person. I mean, I went to Yale that pretty early. My prep school was pretty cool. Of my class of 65 kids in my prep school, I think 13 of us went to Yale.
Okay, wow.
So it wasn't like I was the only one. I mean, and I can remember my dad's comment, son, you can any college you want to, son, but I will pay your way. That's a joke, as you know. It's not real, but there's an element of truth that makes it funny.
Yeah.
You have expectations of success. From those to whom much has been given, much is expected.
Yeah.
And, that's the way I've always been raised. And I looked at my brothers, I looked at my colleagues, and, a lot of them crashed and burned. But that's what comes from this back.
And what did that first job working for the president teach you?
I tell everyone it was sort of like this. I said, Mom, you won't believe this, but I just wrote a speech for the president of the United States. No, there were 2 words he changed. That's true, but that's all. But it was my speech. Everywhere where I had is not, he put is, and everywhere I put is, he put is not. But other than that, Mom, it's my speech. Nixon was not. I liked Nixon very much personally.
Yeah.
But he was not a good president. And I don't mean because he was immoral. Probably he was that too. All right? But he wasn't good on economics. I mean, wage and price controls, devaluation of the dollar, that boop bap, it was all wrong. And the consequences were wrong. Protectionist all the way. Camp David was a 10% import tax surcharge. And then we had the job development credit, which excluded foreign-made capital from getting the investment tax credit. All of this was, every single part of what Nixon did made the world worse. And I don't mean that because he was a bad person. He wasn't. He didn't understand the 5 kingdoms of macroeconomics. He didn't understand you want a low-rate, broad-based flat tax. He didn't understand that spending restraint was better than spending. He didn't understand that a sound dollar would make for great prosperity. He didn't understand the minimal regulations.
Yeah.
He didn't understand that free trade was hugely, the 5 grand kingdoms of macroeconomics, he didn't get. And I wasn't able to, at that stage, touch it. Now, my boss, George Shultz, was the finest human being that ever walked the face of the earth. And I really mean that. But he thought floating exchange rates was good. Hello? Excuse me? No. He was a professor. He was dean of the business school. He'd hired me 4 times. He never did learn better,
Yeah.
And, but, my job was, how can I make this world a better functioning economy, better functioning to provide the wherewithal to create growth, output, employment, prosperity, so that people in the inner cities and the ghettos, they can make it on their own. They can't.
Yeah.
They're no different than you and I. They really aren't. And how do we create the environment that allows them to have the privilege I have? There's nothing wrong with privilege. The problem is there's not enough of it. Everyone should be privileged.
And one of the quotes I use a lot that you say is the best social program is a good job.
Thank you. But that is true. And it is. And what we need to do is be able to provide a society that allows people to make it on their own, to fly as high as their little wings will take.
Yeah.
You know, my hero is Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy, not Frank. But
Why?
well, we're all dealt different. And some people come short. Basketball is probably in the cards for, some people are dealt with higher IQ, better look. I mean, and that is their own affair.
Yeah.
To play those hands. That is, you can't change the dealings. You can't change how people play their hands. But what you want in this world is, from a government, is there should be no crookedness in the deal. I'm not in favor of the rich man or against the rich man. I'm in favor of the poor man or the black man or the white man or the Jew or the Christian. They're all dealt hands. But there should be no crookedness in how those hands dealt, and no crookedness in how they're treated when they play those hands.
Yeah.
Did you ever read a book by Kurt Vonnegut
No.
called Harrison Bergeron? I beg you to read it. It's a short story. You can read it. And it explains to you that, when the government comes in and tries to manipulate the situation so that everyone comes out equal, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let me do the transfer theorem. And it's just math. That's it. And the way we talk about government today is, those who have a little bit more, those who have a little bit less. And if you look at that, the government comes in. I mean, why does that little 5-year-old girl raised mansion in Lake Michigan, Lake Forest, and then there's this little girl in Cabrini Green, black mother. She's a red lady. That's how she's just a 5-year-old girl too. I don't know how to answer that question, but then you come in and say, we must do something about it. And I look at the situation there, and so the government comes in and says, Sayas, Piketty, Sancheva, Sukhman, all these. We've got to redress inequity.
Yeah.
I feel the same. I mean, it's not fair. But let's go to their redressing inequity. What they do and what they propose is that you come in and take from those who have a little bit more and give to those who have a little bit less. I mean, come on, it's obviously. But when you think about it for a second, let me, if I can with you, go through this mathematically, although I'll describe it verbally to you. If you take from those who have a little bit more and give to those who have a little bit less, by taking from those who have a little bit more, you reduce their incentives to produce, and they will produce a little bit less. Any questions on that?
Nope.
By giving to those who have a little bit less, you provide them with an alternative source of income other than working, and they too will produce a little bit less. Whenever you redistribute income, you always reduce total income. This is not opinion. I could give a damn what your is.
Yeah.
This is about facts, not how you feel. You follow me?
Yeah.
It's a math theorem. The theorem is very simply, whenever you redistribute income, you always reduce total income.
Yeah.
Always. Now, the lemma from this theorem is fairly beautiful. And it's a math theorem that I'm doing,
yeah.
and this is the way I describe it to my students before I get up there and do the math. All right? The lemma from this theorem is also pretty obvious. I'm not going to prove it to you, but I'll say it to you, and I think you'll understand it. It's very clear that the more you redistribute, the greater will be the loss in totaling.
Yeah.
You with me?
Mm-hmm.
The one I want to go through with you, because I wish you were Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or AOC or Wedgwood Ben or McKinnock or any of these people. Dower, Gordon Brown, I wish you were.
Yeah.
Our fellow, you take a 23andMe and we're very closely related to him, if you know what I mean. The limit function of this theorem is delicious beyond belief.
Yeah. It's
got that spicy, piquant flavor. Your nose runs a little bit. You take a tissue. It's so wonderful. If we were able to redistribute all in so that everyone earned exactly the same, there will be no income whatsoever. Let me prove this to you verbally.
Yeah.
But it's math. To get everyone to come at exactly the same, what do you have to do? What you have to do is you have to tax everyone who makes above the average income 100% of the excess.
Yeah.
And you have to subsidize everyone below the average income 100% up to the average income.
Yeah.
Now, if you actually did that, if you actually taxed everyone above the average income 100% of the excess, and you actually subsidize everyone below the average income up to the average income, I will stipulate today, counselor, that we'll all be equal at zero income.
Yeah.
Now, you understand the transfer theory. I don't give a goddamn if you're a tall, skinny professor at Harvard, little short, fat one at MTSU or whatever the hell the university's name is. This is math, not how you feel.
Yeah.
And all the libs, all the conservatives, it's true. It's provable. It's a theorem, for God's sakes. Now, take a deep breath. Exhale slowly. Get a little brown paper bag. You say, how do you help the poor? How do you do it? Well, I'm going to take you back to my book 2.5 years ago, called Taxes Have Consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. I use all the data from the Institute of Inequality at Harvard.
Yeah.
Even these super lefties. You know the ones I'm talking about. And I go to the income tax of the U.S. Forget U.S.-centric.
Yeah.
I can't help myself. I mean, it's my double helix.
Yeah.
And I go back to the income tax, which was put in the U.S., progressive income tax. You know that little girl in Cabrini Green?
Yeah.
Does she deserve to live that life? Some little girl in Kentucky, coal mine, Kentucky, and she's living there. Her mom and dad are toothless. They take meth. The little girl cries every night. She has a torn dress. What's she done to deserve that?
Mm.
And yet the little one in Lake Forest, Illinois, living in a mansion there, her little birthday parties of all of me. So what I did is I got every single tax return. Yes. We have every one of them. This is not a sampling issue.
Yeah.
This is how it actually plays out. In 1913, the income tax started. We passed the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which allowed a progressive income tax. 1913, when Woodrow Wilson was president, the first year of the income tax was only 2 months. It was November and December. A progressive income tax. We're going to redistribute income.
Yeah.
Now, the first one was only 2 months. The progressive income tax applied to only 358,000 individuals. And that was out of a total adult population of 62 million. So tiny group of people paid a progressive income tax and was less than half of 1%.
Yeah.
And the income tax went from 0 to 7%. And that income tax that was put in lasted for 3 years, 1913, 1914, 1915.
Yeah.
And no tool. And they took that income tax. They ran it from 0 to 7%. They ran it up where in 1917, it started in 13.
Yeah.
Now we're into 1917. The highest marginal income tax is now 77%. 4 years. The number of people required to file went from 358,000 to 6.5 million. But now we had needs.
Yeah.
No, we did. We had the pandemic of 1917.
Mm-hmm.
You guys started it all, but we came in to join you. World War I.
Yeah.
We did. We had great need. We defeated the pandemic. We defeated the
Yeah.
Kaiser Wilhelm's falls. Defeated them all. We did. And our president, Woodrow Wilson, thank you for providing us with these resources to do this job. We're going to reward you. I'm going to give you a little bonus. We're going to cut that tax rate
Yeah.
from 77% to 73%. You're welcome. That's what we did. So from 1919, 1920, and 1921, the highest marginal income tax rate was 73%.
Yeah.
We got a big battle going on politically. The haves versus Woodrow Wilson's handpicked candidate was a guy named Fox from Ohio, my home state. He was the governor of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And he chose his running mate, who was the number 2 at the Department of Navy, named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was the vice presidential candidate
Yeah.
of the Democratic Party. And the Republicans picked this guy named Warren G. Harding. And he picked his running mate, Calvin Coolidge. They ran on a return to normalcy. Now, Cox and Roosevelt ran on keeping the tax rates high and paying off the wartime debt. Harding and Coolidge ran on cutting tax rates, a return to normalcy, cutting those tax rates back to where they were pre-war, pre-pandemic. The biggest election in U.S. history, the Republicans won just percentage.
Yeah.
They just wiped the floor with Cox and Roosevelt, and they were able to reduce the highest tax rate from 73% to 25%. Now, that took them a couple of years. The biggest post-World War I depression crash it saw, they got that tax rate down to 25%. What happened?
Tax receipts up.
Oh, no, but it was called the Roaring '20s. We had the greatest period of prosperity in U.S. history. We had 11 years of surpluses. The price will actually decline during this. What did the Brits do? What did the Germans do? What did the froggy French do? They did it the other way. They just kept the tax rates from World War I, and you had the worst depression collapse ever. But we had the greatest boom of all time.
Yeah, but
Now-
you also the Great Depression in 29, right?
No. I'm walking you step by step. Please let me do that.
Okay, so this isn't your usual ad read. We've just partnered with Hunch, an AI job finding platform that I believe in so much, I've actually invested in it. If you've ever listened to Jimmy's Jobs and thought, I'd love to work with those guests, now you can. whether it's the UK government, Google, Amazon, or the BBC. Hunch makes it easy to discover and apply for roles at companies like those. And here's the kicker. We'll be hiring through Hunch soon too. So if you download it, you might even end up working with us. Honestly, for our listeners, this feels like the perfect fit. Just visit askhunch.com to learn more. Back to the episode.
Yeah, but
Now-
also the Depression in 29, right?
No. Walking you step by
Okay.
step. Please let me do that. Because you've to learn from history. You must. We have all the tax returns, every one of them. We know the last guy in the top 1%. We know the first guy in the bottom 9%, 99%. I'm sorry, I'm Monsieur Piketty, I'm Monsieur Sayers. I want to tell you how to redistribute it. Wealth taxes and all this stuff. So in 1929, we felt really sorry for the farmers. So they proposed something called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff. All right? They had the Smoot-Hawley Tariff and came in and they wanted to do it there. And just a little tariff, but 1928, 29, this movement of the tariff gained force, power. It got adherents all over the place in both parties. And it was the largest single tax increase on traded products in U.S. history. Really a big deal. It passed the House and the Senate in the fourth quarter of 1920. The market went from the high of all-time highs. It dropped 35% in one quarter. It's a market crash. The bill passed both House and Senate. It went to the president, Herbert Hoover. He signed it into law on June 30th, 19. We're in massive crash. The market fell to where it was 83 of its percent of its previous high. The unemployment rate went up to as high as 25%. And what did this rocket surgeon do? We need to solidify the finances of the federal government. So they raised the highest tax rate from 25% to 63% January 1st, 1932. He lost the election. The market crashed. The unemployment rate went as high as 25%. It was down. He lost the election to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who then came into office by a landslide, by the way. He came into office in March of 1933. First thing he did was the Bank Holiday Act. And I'll just take you through a moment of it. First thing he did was he confiscated all the gold in the U.S. Illegal to own gold. Took in all the currency, all the thing, and put in paper money. That time, he confiscated the gold at $20.67 an ounce in March. 6 months later, in September, he devalued the dollar to $35 an ounce. It was the biggest wealth tax in U.S. history ever. And God, we went over the cliff again, way down. You know, it was incredibly devalued the dollar, devalued the currency abroad. He didn't raise taxes quite yet, but in 1937 he did. He raised the highest marginal income tax rate from 63%, which is where Hoover had put it, and he raised it to 79%. We put in the Social Security tax. The crash went way down again.
Yeah.
And then they decided to postpone the second and the third increase in the payroll tax for Social Security. They didn't stop the income tax. They kept raising it until 1944. The highest marginal income tax rate was 94%. Every dollar you earned will let you keep 6 cents. Now, let me take you on through. We won the war. We had tax cuts. Robert Taft, who used to stay in my family's home, senator from Mr. Republican, Mr. Tax Cutter. He kept trying to pass these bills in the House and the Senate, tax cut. Harry Truman vetoed him. Vetoed 3 of them. Finally, the House and the Senate overrode his veto. and dropped the highest tax rate from 94% to 82%, we had a boom. And then we created another war. It was called the Korean War.
Mm-hmm.
And then we raised the tax rates back up. Oh, we need to raise money. We raised up to 91%. Eisenhower came into office. Eisenhower kept it at 91% for the full 8 years of that crappy economy. And then we finally got John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
John F. Kennedy cut the highest tax rate in America from 91% to 70%, the lowest rate from 20% to 14%. He cut the corporate tax from 52 to 48%. He tried to cut it for 46%. Thank God for Barry Goldwater, Bob Dole. They kept it from going down because we need a sound budget and low deficits. That's what. We had the go-go 60s. We had this boom because of. We had a balanced budget. We had no inflation. And then thank Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter, the largest assemblage of bipartisan ignorance ever put on planet Earth. Wage and price controls, devaluation. They raised the 10% import tax surcharge, the worst 16 years of preaching. And then, and you'll start recognizing this world. And then the skies cleared. The sun shone forth on the earth. The fields turned green. The trees blossomed and bore fruit. The animals, they multiplied. The orphans were adopted. The enemies of America. We got Ronald Reagan. Now, let me take you through Ronald Reagan a little bit, would you? If you forgive me. We cut the highest marginal income tax rate from 70% to 28%. Is that okay? That right-wing freak cut the highest tax. He actually let people earn money from 70% to 28%. We raised the lowest rate from 12.5% to 15%. We went from 14 tax brackets to 2 tax brackets. We cut the corporate rate from 46% to 34%. How irresponsible! This creepy doesn't even understand. He said his elevator didn't go to the top floor. Did you know that Reagan was a racist, a fascist, a sexist? He read lines that other people wrote. He was just an actor. He did that. We got rid of all the deductions, exemptions, and exclusions in the 86 Act. We dropped the highest rate to 28%. We got rid of all these. Do you know what the vote was for the 86 Act?
No.
In the Senate. Barely passed. You see what I'm just describing, what we actually did. Well, how would that do today? No one would vote for it.
Yeah.
That day, in the Senate vote for the 86 Tax Act, it was really close, 97-3. There were 3 senators who voted against it. Paul Simon of Illinois, that little guy with the bow tied, dumb as a stump. Levin of Michigan, creep. Merkle of Montana. Those were the only 3 who voted against it. Tall and pink, Bill Bradley.
Yeah.
He voted for it. Joe Biden. He voted for it. Teddy Kennedy. He voted for it. My dear friend, man I worked with, one of my heroes, Al Gore, he voted for it. He said it was the best bill in economics he'd ever voted for. And what happened? Got this renaissance, this Reagan boom of incredible proportions from January 1st, 83 to June 30th, 84. U.S. real GDP grew by 12%, 8% per annum compounded. That's Chinese growth rates.
Mm.
No, I'm now coming back to you full tilt. This is my book called Taxes Have Consequences. It is the entire history of the U.S. income tax. It's all there, young man. Now, let me take you through a couple of lessons to
Yeah.
your redistributions. Now I'm taking you full circle. I'm bringing you back now to the beginning of our conversation. What happened? You saw we have tax rates going up, down, move, boop, deduction. Every single thing that possibly could happen happened.
Yeah.
We have data on every one of those. Every single time we've raised the highest marginal income tax rate, three things have occurred. The economy has underperformed.
Yeah.
Tax revenues from the rich have gone down, not up. Poor being hurt. Every single time we've cut tax rates on the rich. Every single time. I've gone through them all with you.
Yeah.
Every single time we've cut tax rates on the rich, the economy has way outperformed. Tax revenues from the top 1% of income earners have gone way up, and the poor have done well. Now, I have just taken you through two things. I've taken you through an explanation of economics with the transfer theorem.
Mm-hmm.
You now know the logic underlying this. And I've then taken you through all of the data. What the hell more do you want from me? It is correct logically, and it comports perfectly with the data. Give me science. Come on, have a date. Let's you and I have a debate. We'll do it at Claridge's there. Make it for 3 hours with this dumb son of a gun. I'm using his data. Now, it is true that if you raise tax rates, income inequality goes down. Why? Income inequality does go down. The transfer theorem tells you it'll go down.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be poorer, but the rich are going to be poorer faster than the poor can be poor until you finally get equality where everyone is equally poor. That is exactly what these creepazoids are teaching us, and they're all wrong. And you've just understood everything about income inequality, and I dare you to go the opposite direction. Gordon Brown, how did he do in your country?
Not well.
No, thank you. And
But you-
unfortunately,
But do you think America, like historically, when you paint all that picture through, like it seems like you would almost think that America is historically a high tax country.
but it is.
Right. Okay.
We have tried every damn socialist thing there is, and we've tried the others. And unfortunately, we get to choose our presidents.
Yeah.
You can imagine if we were Britain, we would have Nancy Pelosi as our president. What? God, talk about the nightmare on Elm Street.
But what? Because your new book, right, written with some great people.
Are you having fun?
Oh yeah. Well, I am enjoying the history lesson part.
But this
No,
is
I am.
this is what economics is all about: incentives. If you tax people who work, and you pay people that don't work, don't be surprised if you'll find a lot of people not working.
So I totally, and I actually think your whole thing about the book is incentives matter, right?
But that's
what it's
it. That's all it
But
is.
we don't actually talk about that enough.
I
Sam-
talk about it all here.
I know, but Sam Altman also has this great phrase about
Because they
incentives
want
are a
they
superpower.
want a virtue signal. I love the poor so much. I want to make everyone poor. No, there's nothing wrong with being rich. Everyone wants. How many people in this silly country of yours buy lottery tickets?
Yeah.
Why do they buy a lottery ticket? Because they want to be rich. Everyone wants to be rich. Let's let them be rich. There's nothing wrong with being rich. There's something desperately wrong with being poor. Let's give the poor a chance to become rich. Please.
I agree.
Stop already.
The aspirational class. I think Britain is at its best when its prime ministers are in
Of course,
tune with
you're
aspiration.
the home of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Capitalism is born here, and now you're the example of virtue signaling and poverty. Help. My job here. I'm a Yank. All right. Forgive me. That's where I was born. You know my background. You asked my background. I told you my background. Blah, 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 all that. Do I have anything in my repertoire that could help you make better decisions over here? If not, I'll go home. No, I'll go home. I love you dearly. I really do love you. And I enjoy Britain very much. And I look at Britain and I start crying.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I look at it like Bobby Kennedy. I look at what's going on and I ask why. And I imagine what could happen and I ask, why not?
Well, we're at our highest tax rates for years and years.
But you don't learn. John F. Kennedy put it so beautifully that no American's ever made better off by pulling a fellow American down. And we're all made better off whenever any one of us is made better off. A rising tide raises all boats. There's nothing wrong with rich people. There is something very wrong with poor people. They're poor.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? You want to do a tax code that comports with the wishes and dreams of every Brit. You don't want to make it rich versus poor. You don't want to make it black versus white, old versus young, male versus female. You don't want to do all of that stuff. You're all in the same tub together. If your tax code is not agreeable to rich people, it's a bad tax code. If your tax code is not agreeable to poor people, it's a bad tax code. If you make 10 times as much as I do, you should pay 10 times as much in taxes, not 1,000 times. And if you do 1,000 times, you got me going. And look I'm richer than you are. I can shelter my income. I can change the location of my income. I can the timing of my income. I can change the composition of my income. I can change the volume of my income. I have the means to hire the lawyers, the accountants, the deferred income specialists, the favor. I can buy more politicians. So when you get these people who are anti-rich, they are really anti-IQs. The rich are what we all want to be. And the dream is to have a low-rate, broad-based flat tax, spending restraint, sound money, minimal regulations, free trade, and then get the hell out of the way and let the poor people become rich. Please.
Why did Reagan get this more than anyone else?
He didn't at first. He learned. I've known Reagan since he was a young man. Joking. My God, the reason I was so close to Reagan, again, goes back to the beginning of our conversation. I'm privileged. My godfather happened to be Ronald Reagan's best friend, a man named Justin. I tell everyone the reason I was chosen by Reagan is he had a big stage full of economists, and he said, I'll take the little short fat one over there. That's not true. I got my job because of privilege. It's so much nicer getting that job with privilege than actually. But I was involved with my first publication was in the first economic report of the governor of the state of California, when he was the single worst governor the U.S. had ever had. He raised the income tax rate from 9% to 11.5%. He raised the corporate rate. He learned from his mistakes. I used to talk to him afterwards. Sir, when you were governor, Arthur, I know I was not a good governor, but at least I was better than those other damn governors. At least I learned from my mistakes. They didn't even learn. And so this man evolved. He was not born in a manger by God's light shining down on him. He was a normal human being and a very wonderful, lovely one. And he learned to read his Reagan in his own hand, how he learned from his mistakes. I did this and it didn't work. I did that and it didn't work. He was head of a union that had called the most vicious nationwide strikes ever. He understood what it was like to be a union leader and do the wrong thing, so that when the air traffic controllers struck against the people of America, he fired them.
Yeah.
But you know something? Did you know that they were the only that endorsed him in the primary?
Right.
Well, did you know that they were the only union that endorsed him in the general election? Yet, in spite of that, he let logic run his emotions. And he said, look, I loved you guys. Thank you for endorsing me. I do. But this is the wrong thing to do. And if you don't come back to work, I'm firing you. That's what a great man does. That's what a Donald Trump does. Donald Trump isn't the pollster in chief.
Yeah.
He's the CEO of the U.S. If you think everyone in the White House loves him, you're crazy. Not many people like CEOs. He doesn't ask his staff, what should I do? He tells his staff what we're going to do. And then he says, get it done.
And let's talk about Trump, right?
Let's talk about
Because
Trump.
he's the modern, it's incredible.
He's the modern Ronald Reagan. Only it's a different style. But that's all.
But how is his style different?
Well, he's gruff. I mean, Reagan, they all of them get angry at me, of course, because I'm prodding them all. You can tell who I am now.
Right.
You've learned who I am now. Unfortunately, you'll never invite me back. But when Ronald Reagan would get angry at me, he said, Arthur? Reagan throws sandwiches against walls. Reagan, you hear his patois, just a different style.
Yeah.
Same man. Now, everyone in the Reagan kitchen cabinet, including my godfather, was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But Ronald Reagan was a gentleman. Donald Trump is also a gentleman. He's a very elegant man. If you were in the Oval Office today, the redecoration he's done is phenomenal. It's really high class. He's from a long line of very successful people, privileged people, and very much my background, Scots, Irish, and German. We are all from, we all went to the same prep schools, the same Ivy League. I went to a couple better than any of them, but and if you look at it, he's got class, he's got dignity, he's funny as hell. And he's got a vision of what he thinks the world should look like, correctly so, and so did Reagan. And they both are very successful at it.
But you're free marketeer, and then we've got
just let me say, I believe in incentives. I don't believe in free markets and cops. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just don't. I think there are certain areas that government really is important, and that we need to make sure that we comport ourselves in a way that's compatible with good incentives. I do believe in punishing criminals. I do believe in rewarding people who do good things. I really am very incentive-based. Most of good incentives is free market.
Yeah.
But not all of it. I believe in a strong peace through strength. What is peace through strength? Having the strongest defense in the world so you beat the living hell out of the bad actors.
Yeah.
If you have to. And peace is if you decide not to be a bad actor. By the way, let's make a lot of money together. Come on, let's do business. What do you think he's doing in Ukraine and Russia? What do you think he did in Gaza?
I get that. It's more the tariffs.
That's not free market.
No, of course not.
That's
right?
incentives.
And I'm beginning to remember Americans' definition of free market is slightly different. It's like
okay, then I maybe
no. But I'd say, but just on the tariff side, right?
Let's do the tariffs.
Like because you are supportive of Trump, etc. So I would just, yeah.
I know that I had this question before. He called me in 2019, and I've known him for a long time. Not really well, but I've known him, and he knows who I am, and I all the way back. And he called me in 2019. He said, Arthur, I want you to know I'm a free trader. And I said, I understand that. Anyone who's a CEO of an international company is a free trade. I mean, that's their nature. They hate governments, tariffs, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Fair.
I then made a comment. I said, and also anyone who imports 2 foreign wives has to be a free trader. He did not laugh, by the way. And he said, I am a free trader. And I said, I agree. I know that. He said, look, when I look at this world, and it's what he calls reciprocity. The U.S. was very, very nice with all these foreign countries after the war. We were not damaged like they were, whether they be combatants on our side or against us. We tried to rebuild it. We gave them all sorts of leeway on tariffs and quotas to protect domestic industries when they were first starting out, and they never removed them. So when you look at the world today, the way it's evolved, all of these countries have way more tariffs against us, way more non-tariff barriers against us than we do against them. Mm-hmm. Of the large countries, we're the freest trade, large country. Now, you may have the Isle of Man and Jersey, Guernsey, and Sark, and maybe Monaco and Hong Kong. But of the biggies, we are by far the freest trade country. They've got all these barriers against us, and those barriers hurt them as well as us. This is him speaking to me. They hurt themselves as much as us. And he said, all they care about, these people, all they care about is access to our markets. They're mercantilists. I mean, David Ricardo would be screaming about these horrible people doing all this stuff. How do I bring them to the table to negotiate free trade? Then he went on the second 2 points. Now, you see the reciprocity is different than the Adam Smith argument. There are 2 other aspects that are different. He said, the Smoot-Hawley tariff took 5 years to pass and took a century to get rid of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just very cumbersome, inflexible type of democracy at work. Now we have executive orders where we can flexible. I can have a tariff on you, remove it tomorrow afternoon, double it. It's a very flexible system as opposed to a very rigid system. That's a huge difference between now and back then.
Okay. Yeah.
And the last thing is that this is a very Trumpy thing, is that it's true. There are no winners in a trade war. That's very true. But the losses aren't equal in a trade war. You take the U.S. and Puerto Rico as the only two countries in the world. The U.S. is 99% of the world. Puerto Rico is 1%. If you put on tariffs and quotas, Puerto Rico's hurt a lot more than the U.S. is. So there's leverage. This is leverage in it. Okay? So he says to me, he said, look, these guys, all they care about is having access to our markets and denying us the right to sell in their markets. They use political things all the way through on their protection, but they want to access to our. So I'm going to scare the hell out of them, Arthur. 50%, 100%, 200% tariffs, and bring them to the table and force them to negotiate freer trade deals with us. Oh, excuse me. I didn't hear what you said earlier when we brought into this discussion. Now, again, that's the explanation. Let's look at the data. He had his first term, 4 years. There were 5 major trade deals done. The USMCA, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, and Colombia. Those were the 5 deals done. Did tariffs go up or down on those 5 deals? Every single one of them went down. Each one of those was freer trade than it had been prior to that. Look at what the man does, not what he says. I'm going to tell you about Donald Trump on a personal level. Don't take him literally, but do take him seriously. Don't. When he was at the G7, Ottawa, with the baby Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, I can't stand him either. I didn't like his father either. Pierre was the worst. But when he was there, he had to leave early to go to Singapore to meet with Kim Jong-un. Okay? Kim Jong-un has that button. Who likes nuclear war? I'm looking for someone who wants to see this is Linda Ronstadt's statement. Who likes nuclear war? No one. So he said, no one likes nuclear war. I've got to go to Singapore to meet with this man to lower the temperature, and you want me to go, and I need to go. But before I leave early, and I'm sorry I have to leave early to do this, before I leave early, I look at the 6 of you. The U.S. this is well documented, by the way. I'm looking at the 6 of you, the rest of the G7. The U.S. is prepared right as of now to get rid of all tariffs, all quotas, and non-tariff barriers if you are. Look at the shoes. No. This man is the freest trade president. This is me speaking now. I'm not putting words in his mouth. If you want to hear what he says about himself or about me, he'll tell you all sorts of trash about me. But the truth of it is, I think this man uses trade to negotiate, to get peace and free trade. And I think he's the best free trader ever.
Okay. What incentives matter?
Totally.
What incentivizes, in your experience, presidents and politicians?
Well, there are 2 types of presidents. There are those which we started off with, and my people. I'm not a typical academic. When I went at the University of Chicago, my mother came over and said to me, Arthur, do you actually socialize with these people? And I remember my son coming up there one time, it was around Halloween, and said, look at all the people dressed for Halloween. That was normal garb at the time. So I'm a very different person in the academic, and that's why you'll find a lot of my people, my colleagues, and I was in classes with all of them. I got better grades than they did.
Yeah.
But I know all of these people from my classes, and George Akerlof was in my class at Yale. He's married to Janet. And I got my fastest promotion to tenure at Chicago of anyone. So a professor. So I'm in that community, but it is a very different cultural community than mine. And they have used their academic career to advance themselves. I use my academic career because I love economics. And it's a totally different. This takes us back to how do you teach your children to live with wealth as opposed to create wealth? And this is my calling, is I had the privilege of doing whatever wanted to do. I got all the great job offers from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, all of those, because in the MBA, and then I went over and got my PhD. I wanted to become a PhD because I love academics. I read physics nonstop, math, biology, geology, linguistics. I mean, I'm in love with, not because I want to use it as a tool to control your lives, because I want to understand it. It's the old one, Zion forgot. I mean, stand in awe of this. You look at your studio here. How did that? It's the most amazing, wonderful thing. I didn't do it because I want to change something.
Yeah.
I want to use it as a tool. No, I wanted to understand the universe, to understand physics, to understand biology. My Lord, it's awesome, dude. It is. Now, my colleagues, they wanted it to advance their careers. They wanted to push the boat instead to get things. And Paul Krugman couldn't start a business if he had to. The only way he can take control of an economy is by stealing it through his training to run this thing. He is an interloper. Now, it is true. If some guy has a green thing hanging out of his ear and plops down on the floor, and the last 7,000 of them died from that green thing, okay. I will agree to using a tool to cut that off. Maybe we can save. But my motto in life is primum non nocere. First of all, do no harm. And second one is vis medicatrix natura, which is the healing power of nature. When we were in there with Reagan, don't just stand there, undo something. Don't do something. Do you see the difference between me and them? They want to get their stinking hands in there and try to control things. Use interest rate. Get your hands up. Their money should be private, just the way it was prior to 1913. We don't need nationalized currencies. That's why we have all these cryptos, is because government-run currencies don't work. My job is vis medicatrix naturae, get the government out of money. Get the government out of trying to control every person's hand and redistribute all the income. They're totally incompetent at that. Milton put it very beautifully. If the government took over the Sahara Desert, within 5 years, there'd be a shortage of sand. And the truth is, government is good at doing some things that it should do. And then stop already.
Yeah.
That's this book. You can see it here in your own country. You see the meddlers. You see Gordon Brown. You see Neil Kinnock. You see Wedgwood Ben. You see all these guys. They want to get rid of all private schools.
Yeah.
Hello. They want to control everything in your life, your little toilets and your little thaw showers that walk in the street. Everything's illegal in Massachusetts. No, that's not how you run the world. You know how I'm different now from every other economist. You've just learned what Arthur Laffer and Laffer economics is.
Yeah.
Now, you may like it, you may not like it, but, I ain't going to change for you. Not today, not tomorrow, not never.
But I think you touched on something there, which is interesting, that even sort of free marketeer, liberal politicians, once they're in government and they have all the levers in front of them, it's human nature to want to intervene more.
Now you hit the last button of mine, my personal life. I was in the Nixon White House. George Shultz asked me to go. I didn't want to. I had a great academic career, but I went there. I had a martini, for God's sake. Never had one. Never will have one again. He waved the flag. Okay, sir, I'll do the job. I was the first chief economist in the White House at 29. All right? And I was the highest ranked economist in the White House when I was 30.
Yeah.
I was the first American to go to China in 1970 with George Shultz and John Ehrlichman on Air Force Two. They bought suits. I was doing the stuff. I was in charge of the Vietnam. And I told you about the Nixon speech.
Mm-hmm.
If you only change two words, Mom, is, and change it to is not, and is not to is. But other than that, Mom, that's true. And I made a vow back then that I would never take a penny from any public official. Reagan and Trump have all asked me to do I don't work for government. And why don't I? Because, when you work for someone, quite correctly, you have an oath of loyalty. They pay you, and you serve them. That's the right way to be. And I never wanted to be in that situation ever again. I never took a job with Reagan. I never took a job with Thatcher. I never took a job with Trump. I never took a job with Sergio de Castro, Ralph Luders, Pinochet. I never took a job with any of these other countries, Puerto Rico, any of the ones I've done the things to the states. I do not take money from politicians. And why do I do that? So I can be honest. I look at these people, and Janet Yellen's the one I use right now, but these academic economists who I know very, very well, they will rebut arguments they know to be true in order to curry favors with their political benefactors. I don't want to do that. When I go into Donald Trump and we talk, I tell him what I actually think is correct and what I think is supportable. I'm not the president. I say to him what I just said to you earlier. Look, sir, I'm here to help you make better decisions. I'm not here to make decisions. I'm not here to lobby for a decision or any of that. I have a body of historical experience that may be useful to you to make a better decision, and that's what I'm here for. And please, would you please kindly not tell me what you're thinking? I don't want to know what you think is right and wrong, because then I go outside and some reporter asks me, and I don't want to lie to the reporter. I don't want to know. I want to say, I don't actually know what Donald Trump thinks about this or what he does. Here's his telephone number. You call him and see what he says to you. He's shy, not shy. Believe me, nor was Reagan. And that's my view, that's my role in life.
And this is my final question, because I know you've got to go. But what's the best, most interesting question that Donald Trump has asked of you? Because he learns by asking questions. Right?
No. He does ask questions, but not until we've gotten way down. For example, I was talking about medical transparency. We have a system there. You go into a hospital in the U.S., and what does it cost to get a CAT scan? You have no idea. The doctor has no idea. No, it does. Just the doctor wants to see one. I said, it's like going to your building site with a truck full of materials in the back. What do you got in there? I don't know what's in it. Bricks, maybe some board. I don't know what it is. Is it any good? Don't ask me. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're any good. Do you want to buy it? Well, what's it cost? I don't know that either. Sorry, I got that. Do you want to buy it or not? Are you going to sign the line or not? That's our healthcare system. We don't know what it is we've got. We don't know how much it costs, but you've got your insurance card.
Yeah.
And it's the stupidest, worst thing in the world. So I'm going through this example. By the time I'd left the office, he had just done the executive order for price transparency. He gives me all credit for it. I got a Larry Van Horn in there he write over the Department of. That's Donald Trump's CEO. Now, did he ask me about the healthcare system? Oh, I studied the healthcare system. I know it, and I was describing it to him. I had been chairman of the board of Centennial Hospital for 3 years, which is the flagship for HCA. It's one of the top 4 or 5 in the U.S. I mean, it's really amazing. I know there's some of those doctors you don't want to be your doctors, but you don't know the information. And they go, you love this man, it's wonderful. No, he's not. I got his statistical record. We need transparency in healthcare. And so this is Donald Trump. I go in there, 501c3s, universities. Why should contribution to Harvard be tax exempt? Why should their earnings be tax exempt? They shouldn't be. Why shouldn't merit pay be there for merit pay for teachers? Why shouldn't good teachers get paid more than bad teachers? Please help me. Yeah. Why shouldn't I would vote for vouchers. I would. But it's not the right thing to do. What you want to do is reward excellence, whether it's public or private. All those kids in the top 5% of the SAT scores, give them $15,000 tax-free, no questions asked. Second 5%, give them $7,500. Let them run. Believe me how this works. You come to your dad. Dad, I missed the top 5% by just one kid. Get over here, son. Grandma, teach him. You want to incentivize the system to get the rewards you'd like. Politicians are going to die rich. Get used to it. Get used to it. What you want them to do is they're going to die rich. Let's get them rich by doing the right thing rather than the wrong thing. Put them on commission. If the economy grows at 3% per annum, you get your pay. Grows at 4% per annum, double your pay.
Yeah.
5% per annum, triple your pay. 2%, no pay. 1%, you owe us the money you would have been paid. They'll never vote the stupid way they vote now. Make it so that their votes have, when they vote, they don't bear the consequences of their own actions. Now, I use that illustratively with you, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they should be allowed to do. Billy Weld, as governor of Massachusetts, found this one staffer found something that saved the state $20 million. He gave her a $10,000 bonus, and the courts required him to claw it back because that was illegal in Massachusetts to give a bonus to a public employee. Help me. Help me. You've got to do this in Britain. You need to resurrect your society. And if you don't, all your kids are going to die of bloody poverty. If not now, when? If not you, who? Jimmy, it's your job to do it. No, you giggle and laugh. But you see all those kids out there in this city? You're responsible for them.
Yeah.
And this is not a joke. I've tried to make it humorous and educational with you. But it's not a joke. You have a moral obligation from God on above to make this life a better life for them. You can't virtue signal all them. Oh, I love the poor so much, I want to make everyone poor. That's what they're saying to you. Get those people out of here and get someone in there who can show a little guts, Everyone knows that you have to lower taxes in Britain. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows you need deregulation. Everyone knows you need freer trade. Everyone knows you just need to sound the pound. The pound is so bad, they're going to call it the ounce. You know all those problems. Do something about it now.
Dr. Arthur
Thank
Laffer,
you, sir.
Thank you very much for coming on
My
Jimmy's Jobs
pleasure.
of the Future. Been brilliant. Could talk for hours more.
Well, I hope
Next
it
time.
is this what you wanted from me?
Yes, it's very interesting.
Okay.
Although we didn't talk about AI and crypto.
But
But
we don't.
next
You
time.
know where AI and crypto are in my script. They're private markets trying to take care of government problems.